I was 23 when my mother sat me down at our kitchen table, the same one where I'd done my homework and eaten countless bowls of cereal, and told me she was getting remarried. It wasn't a surprise, not really. She had been dating a man named Greg for almost 2 years, a quiet, steady accountant with kind eyes and a way of making her laugh that I hadn't heard since my father left. I was happy for her, genuinely happy. She deserved someone who looked at her the way Greg did, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. But when she told me that Greg had a son who would be moving into our house, my stomach did a weird little flip that I couldn't quite explain. His name was Jake. He was 22, a year younger than me, and he had been living with his mom in a different state until she decided to move to Europe for work. Greg had full custody now, which meant Jake was coming to live with us, to share the house that had been mine and my mom's for as long as I could remember. I met Jake for the first time on a sweltering July afternoon. The air conditioner in our house had broken, and the heat was oppressive, pressing down on everything like a wet blanket. I was sitting in the living room, fanning myself with a magazine when I heard the front door open. I looked up and there he was. He was tall, lean, with dark hair that was just a little too long and eyes that were the color of honey, warm and golden and startlingly direct. He had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a guitar case in his hand, and he looked around the living room with an expression that was part curiosity, part apprehension. "You must be Emma," he said, his voice low and a little rough. "I'm Jake." I stood up, suddenly self-conscious about the fact that I was wearing old shorts and a faded t-shirt, that my hair was a mess, that I hadn't put on any makeup. "Yeah, hi, welcome to the chaos." He smiled, a real smile, not the forced polite one I'd been expecting. "Thanks, I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope. Your mom says you're a writer," he said, setting down his bags. "That's cool, I write songs." I felt a flicker of surprise. I hadn't expected him to be an artist, hadn't expected him to be anything other than a standard-issue stepbrother who would be awkward and distant and hard to get to know. But there was something about him, something open and genuine, that made me want to know more. The first few weeks were awkward, as they always are when you're suddenly sharing a house with a stranger. We tiptoed around each other, trying to figure out the rhythms of each other's lives. I learned that he was a night owl, that he liked to stay up late in the garage, strumming his guitar and scribbling in a notebook. I learned that he was a terrible cook, that he burned toast and made coffee that was too strong. I learned that he had a quiet, dry sense of humor that caught me off guard, making me laugh at unexpected moments. Slowly, the awkwardness started to fade, replaced by something that felt like friendship. We started spending more time together, just the two of us. Our parents worked late, and we would find ourselves alone in the house, ordering takeout and watching bad movies on the couch. We talked about everything and nothing, about our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. He told me about his mom, about the way she had always been a little distant, a little preoccupied with her own life. He told me about his music, about the songs he was writing, about the way he felt like he was always searching for something he couldn't quite name. I told him about my dad, about the way he had left when I was 10 and never looked back, about the way I had spent years trying to make sense of it. I told him about my writing, about the stories I was trying to tell, about the way I used words to build worlds that made more sense than the real one. It was during one of those late-night conversations that I first felt the shift. We were sitting on the back porch, looking out at the stars, a half-empty bottle of wine between us. He was telling me about a song he was working on, something about loss and longing, and he hummed a few bars, his voice soft and raw. I felt something crack open inside me, something I had been trying to keep closed. "That's beautiful," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. "It's not finished yet, there's something missing." "I can't figure out what." "Maybe you need to feel it more," I said. "Maybe you need to let yourself go deeper." He was silent for a long moment, and then he reached out and touched my hand, his fingers brushing against my skin. "You get it," he said. "You actually get it. I didn't pull away, I should have, I knew I should have, but I couldn't." His touch felt like a lifeline, like something I had been waiting for without even knowing it. We sat there, our hands touching, the stars wheeling overhead, and I felt like the world had shifted on its axis. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen glances and secret moments. We started finding excuses to be alone, to touch, to talk. I told myself it was harmless, that we were just two people who had formed a deep connection, that there was nothing wrong with it. But I knew it was more than that. I could feel it in the way my heart raced when he walked into the room, in the way I couldn't stop thinking about him when he wasn't around. I was falling for my stepbrother, and I couldn't stop myself. It was a Friday night in September when everything changed. Our parents were out of town for the weekend, visiting Greg's sister in another state. The house was empty, just the two of us, and the air was thick with tension. We were in the living room, listening to music, the kind of slow, melancholy songs that seemed to wrap around us like a blanket. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the couch, and I was on the couch, my feet dangling over the edge. He turned to look at me, his eyes dark and intense. "Emma," he said, his voice low, "I need to tell you something." My heart started to race. "What is it?" "I've been trying to fight this," he said. "I've been trying to pretend it's not there, but I can't anymore. I think about you all the time, I dream about you, you're the first thing I see when I wake up and the last thing I think about before I fall asleep." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. I felt like I was drowning, like the air had been sucked out of the room. He reached up and took my hand, pulling me gently off the couch. I slid down, landing on the floor next to him, our faces inches apart. "Tell me you feel it too," he said. "Tell me I'm not crazy." "You're not crazy," I whispered. "I feel it too." He leaned in and kissed me, and the world fell away. It was a kiss that was soft and tender and full of all the longing we had been holding back. It was a kiss that said everything we couldn't say out loud. It was a kiss that changed everything. After that night, we were inseparable. We spent every stolen moment together, whispering and laughing and pretending the world outside didn't exist. We went on secret drives to places where no one would know us, and we talked about running away, about starting over somewhere new. We built a fantasy, a world where we weren't step-siblings, where the rules didn't apply, where love was the only thing that mattered. But the real world was always there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to tear us apart. The guilt started to creep in, insidious and relentless. I would see my mom and Greg together, happy and oblivious, and I would feel like a knife was twisting in my chest. I had betrayed them. I had betrayed their trust. I had taken the love they had given me and thrown it away for a forbidden attraction. I tried to pull away from Jake, to create distance, to do the right thing, but I couldn't stay away. Every time I tried, I felt like I was drowning, like I was losing a part of myself. He was the only thing that made sense, the only thing that felt real in a world that had become a lie. I started to notice changes in myself, in the way I moved through the world. I became withdrawn, distant. I stopped talking to my friends, stopped returning their calls. I stopped writing, stopped doing the things that had once brought me joy. I was consumed by the secret, by the weight of it, by the constant fear of being discovered. I was living in a glass house, and any moment someone could throw a stone. Jake noticed too. He would look at me sometimes, his eyes full of worry. "What's going on with you?" he would ask. "You're not yourself." I would shake my head, force a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But I wasn't fine. I was falling apart, piece by piece. I was losing myself in the love that was supposed to save me. The confrontation came on a Saturday morning. Greg had found Jake's phone, had seen a text from me, something that was too intimate, too revealing. He had confronted Jake, and Jake had broken down and told him everything. My mom and Greg were waiting for me in the living room when I came down for breakfast. The look on their faces was something I will never forget. It was a look of pure devastation, of a trust that had been shattered into a million pieces. "How could you?" my mom asked, her voice breaking. "How could you do this to us, to this family?" I tried to explain, to make them understand, but there were no words. There was no justification for what we had done. I had betrayed them in the worst possible way. I had taken the love they had given me and turned it into a weapon. "It's my fault," Jake said, stepping forward. "I started it, I pushed her, don't blame her." Greg looked at his son, his face a mask of anger and grief. "I'm not blaming her, I'm blaming both of you. You've destroyed this family, you've destroyed everything we built." Jake left that day. He packed his bags and went to stay with a friend. I stayed, too afraid to leave, too broken to move. But the house was a tomb. My mom wouldn't look at me. Greg wouldn't speak to me. I was a ghost in my own home, a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I tried to reach out to Jake, to see him, to talk to him, but he wouldn't respond to my texts, wouldn't answer my calls. He had shut himself off, disappeared into a world I couldn't reach. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life. The weeks that followed were a blur of tears and silence. I barely ate, I barely slept. I just existed, floating through the days like a shadow. I thought about all the moments, all the secrets, all the lies. I thought about the way he had kissed me in the rain, the way he had held me in the dark, the way he had made me feel alive. And I thought about the way it had all fallen apart, like a house of cards collapsing in the wind. I ran into Jake a few months later at a coffee shop downtown. He looked different, harder somehow, the soft edges gone. He was with a girl, a pretty brunette who was laughing at something he had said. I felt a knife twist in my chest, a sharp, unbearable pain. He saw me, and for a moment our eyes met. I saw something flash in his gaze, something that might have been regret or maybe just memory. And then he looked away and he walked out the door and he was gone. I didn't call after him. I didn't try to chase him. I just stood there, frozen, watching him disappear into the crowd. And I knew, with a certainty that felt like death, that it was over. Whatever we had been, whatever we had shared, it was gone. It was never coming back. I moved out of my mom's house a few weeks later. I got a small apartment in a part of town I'd never been to, a place with thin walls and a landlord who never fixed anything. I started over, tried to build a new life. I started writing again, pouring all the pain and regret into stories that would never be read. I went to therapy, tried to forgive myself for the wreckage I had caused. But the guilt was a constant companion, a shadow that followed me everywhere. I'm 28 now. I have a job I don't hate, a few friends who don't know my past. I've dated a few times, but I always push people away. I'm afraid of getting too close, of trusting too much, of repeating the mistakes of my younger self. I'm still haunted by Jake, by the memory of his kiss, his voice, his touch. Some nights I still dream about him and I wake up with tears on my face. I don't know where he is now. I don't know if he's happy. I don't know if he ever thinks about me, the girl who broke his heart and her own in the same reckless moment. But I hope he's found peace. I hope he's moved on. I hope he's built a life that's full and beautiful and free of the pain we caused each other. My mom and I are trying to rebuild our relationship. It's slow, painful work, but we're getting there. She's forgiven me in her way, but the trust is gone and I don't know if it will ever fully come back. I don't blame her. I broke something precious, something that can never be fully repaired. I think about the person I used to be, the girl who believed in love and happily ever after. I miss her sometimes. I miss the simplicity of her life, the clarity of her convictions, but she's gone and she's not coming back. She was killed by a series of choices, a cascade of moments that led to a single devastating truth. I was the villain in my own story. I was the one who tore everything apart. The thing I've learned, the thing I carry with me every day, is that love isn't always enough. It doesn't conquer all. It doesn't make things right. Sometimes love is just a spark, a beautiful, terrible spark that sets everything on fire. And when the fire dies, when the smoke clears, you're left standing in the ashes. You're left with the guilt, the regret, the aching emptiness of all the things you lost. I'm still trying to piece my life together. I'm still trying to figure out who I am without the shame, without the secrets. Some days are easier than others. Some days I feel like I'm making progress. Other days I feel like I'm back at the beginning, standing in the living room, watching my world collapse. But I keep moving. That's all I can do. I keep moving and I try to be better. I try to be the person I should have been all along. I don't know if I'll ever find another love like the one I had with Jake. I don't know if I want to. It was too intense, too consuming, too destructive. It burned me alive and left me for dead, but I'm still here, I'm still breathing, I'm still trying, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Keep moving, keep hoping, keep believing that someday the guilt will fade and the love will be nothing but a memory. A memory of a time when I was so lost, so desperate that I let a forbidden spark destroy everything I had. I look back on those days now, the days of stolen kisses and secret meetings, and I wonder if I would do it all again. If I knew then what I know now, would I have let myself fall? The answer is complicated. A part of me wishes I had walked away, had done the right thing, had spared everyone the pain. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the way he looked at me, the way he made me feel alive, knows that I wouldn't have been able to resist. I was too young, too hungry, too desperate for something real. And he was real. He was so real. He was everything I had ever wanted, even though he was everything I could never have. The scars are still there, deep and jagged. They'll never fully heal. I'll always carry the weight of what we did, the people we hurt, the love we betrayed, but I'm learning to live with it. I'm learning to carry the weight without letting it crush me. I'm learning to forgive myself slowly, painfully, one day at a time. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever find someone who can love me despite all the broken pieces. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that someday I'll be able to look in the mirror and see someone who's worthy of love. I'm hopeful that someday the guilt will fade and the love will be nothing but a distant echo. A reminder of a time when I was young and foolish and desperate enough to believe that a forbidden spark could save me. That's my story. It's messy and ugly and it doesn't have a happy ending. It's just the truth, the raw, unvarnished truth of a woman who made terrible choices and is still trying to find her way back. I don't expect anyone to understand. I don't expect anyone to forgive me. But I hope that maybe, just maybe, someone out there will hear my story and think twice before they let a forbidden spark burn them alive, because it will burn. It will take everything you have and leave you with nothing but ash and regret. I'm still standing though, I'm still here, and that has to count for something.